All right, I'm here with Dane Moore of the Dane Moore NBA podcast. He's covering the Minnesota Timberwolves and does a fantastic job of it. Dane, thank you so much for hopping on, man. Really excited to hear about the Wolves coverage this year.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to do it. I feel like our paths in Nuggets and Wolves world have been crossing for a few years now, and your arrow has been ascending, and the Wolves stay weird, But they're kind of in the middle. Like, I mean, we're going to talk about it. I think like the Wolves are going to be a very competitive regular season team this season, and kind of honestly in the arc that the Nuggets were with Tim Conley, where it's kind of incremental year over year. But I always stay jealous of you and all my other Denver friends just thriving in the mountains.
Well, we've been having a great time, but I gotta say, man, Minnesota, for as much turmoil as they suffered last year, and as distinctively painful as the Towns Gobert pairing was for various points, on the other side of it, you get a summer, you take a step away, you see Anthony Edwards kind of break out a little bit on Team USA, but also in the playoffs the previous April. And it
Mhm.
has been interesting to watch kind of the tone around the T Wolves change, where you start to look at the roster. This is a talented group.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that hasn't been at doubt. I don't think that was at doubt going into last season either. It's the question of how much does the talent cannibalize itself, right? And the way, and it's not as simple as just Cat and Rudy. What ways do they get in each other's way? It's how that incorporates with Ant, how that incorporates with the I mean, nitty gritty stuff. Like they played a completely different style of defense before Rudy got here, and you need to reacclimate to that, and all these different things. So there's talent to be a good team here. It's about how the group of guys mesh together to find like a functional mean, right? Of like how night to night. I mean, one of the biggest things for me is just like how night to night can you impose that size? They did
Sure.
that. They won so few games last season because they were big, and they still won 42 games. So how do you make it so when you're playing a lot of these more middling teams that you can impose that size to rack up regular season wins? And I'm feeling significantly more confident about their ability to do that this season than I was a year ago, because quite simply, I think it's just something that takes a lot of time.
No, and that's completely fair. And at the beginning of this last year, they had D'Angelo Russell kind of captaining the ship and kind of going back and forth with Anthony Edwards. And
Mhm.
there are some definite struggles there in terms of integrating different pieces and seeing the court and making things work. And you make the midseason trade, acquiring Mike Conley, Nikhil Alexander Walker, Carl comes back, and you start to realize, okay, talented group, but also a group that, in my opinion, had a lot of good direction in that postseason series. I saw a lot of great things to take away from in that
Sure.
postseason series after the first couple of games, where if things looked a little bit shaky for sure, but with Anthony Edwards kind of breaking out, with Mike Conley in tow, and I don't see any reason why the Towns Gobert pairing specifically can't find quicker success this time around. Like, I think it makes too much sense.
Yeah, I think it does, and even to the postseason point, like yeah, that I don't think that series didn't go the way they wanted to. They lost in 5 games, but I mean, you were there. The double big look actually, like, to the extent that you could give Nikola Jokic problems, it kind of gave him problems. I rewatched the game five, the final game of that series the other day, and Jokic shoots something like 8 of 28 in that game, and
Yeah.
it like the weapon that they should be able to use here defensively against the Jokic's and Beads, the forceful bigs, is that you can put Cat or Nas or even Kyle Anderson on that guy and have Rudy lurking as the doubler rim protector type thing. Like, that should be a weapon. And again, the only time we ever saw that be a weapon was in the postseason series against Denver and against Jokic, the highest of bars,
Yeah.
for that to be a weapon against. And they didn't really have a chance to be able to, lean into that, figure that all out at any point earlier in the season due to the injuries, due to everything being new. But Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways. Again, that's a perfect example of being able to impose that size and give teams this look that is a problem to them. When last year being big was a problem to the Wolves, right?
Right.
Like getting rid of that, like they just got boat raced in transition all the time. And honestly, that's probably going to happen some again. But can you like find more of that balance where you're imposing more due to your size versus getting exposed because of your size? So that's the story here, right?
Absolutely. No. And finding more opportunities to excel in the moments where you have to go down to one big, I think is really important. And because that's the
Hmm.
utility, especially when you go to a playoffs, is that you're going to get 48 minutes of either Karl-Anthony Towns or Rudy Gobert at center. And I know that they didn't have Naz Reid last year, and he was obviously a
Hmm.
big deal there, but part of the utility
Yeah.
of a guy like Jaden McDaniels is he's a 6'9" guy who can guard 1 through 4 and be very, very
Six
good at it.
eleven, dude.
Oh, is he now 6'11"? Good God.
He's taller than Cat. He's taller than Cat. I've been saying that for like 2 years. The dude's taller than Cat. He's just
Holy cow.
I mean, that was another thing from that series where like, and you mentioned Nikhil Alexander Walker. I think he did a good job on Jamal Murray.
He did a
but
great job on Jamal Murray. I was
but
very impressed.
yes, but Jamal Murray still had like 35 in game 5, and he was making tough as Jamal does, and that's his skill set. Is he's going to be able to get tough shots off of the guys that are guarding him. Nikhil's like Jamal's size, though, right? Maybe Nikhil's like 6'6". Was Jamal like 6'4"?
Yeah, he's 6'4", 6'5" ish.
I mean, and so what stood out to me rewatching that is Jamal's just hitting all these difficult shots. He's getting a shot off over Nikhil, and you're like, you can't be mad at Nikhil. They're tough shots. But I wonder if that's Jaden McDaniels in that series, how many of those times Jamal just doesn't shoot there because Jaden might actually block it, or it's going to be even more contested than Nikhil did. That's overall just like a intriguing point, I think, with the Wolves this season is just that the emergence of Nikhil Alexander Walker at the end of the season allows you now to have two really strong perimeter defenders, where for the past 3 years it's been Jaden and nothing. That could guard somebody.
No, I think that's I talk about their top 8, and you've got Conley, Edwards, McDaniels, Cat, Gobert, and then Kyle
Mhm.
Anderson. I have as their 6th man. Naz Reid, Nikhil Alexander Walker. Those are the 3 guys that I'm thinking of off the bench, and that's an 8-man rotation that is loaded. And as long as you get everybody going the same direction, I don't see any reason why this team shouldn't win way more games than they won this last year. Now, in a packed Western Conference, there are reasons to believe that they might be a little bit tempered expectations, but it probably comes down to Ant, right? Probably comes down to Ant and the levels that he can reach as a superstar. What do you think is the next step for him in that regard?
So it's an interesting concept here where and we've been talking to Chris Finch about this in training camp, of instilling more structure into the offense.
Sure.
Finch is like your classic like flow guy, right? Like he believes, and I kind of believe this too, like the most optimized offensive basketball lacks some structure and plays more on feel and movement, right? And I think a mistake of Chris Finch last season was leaning too far into that idea of flow, because Rudy came from such a structured environment in Utah, right? Probably the most structured environment.
Yeah.
So that's jarring for Rudy. And so they've now come to this conclusion. We need to have more structure in our offense, at least at the beginning of possessions, more play sets, more pick and rolls, more just guided offense. And I think that is definitely the move for the group, right? The interesting thing is, how does that impact Ant? How can Ant function and be this high volume, high usage stud within a more structured offensive setup? We've seen that work, obviously different places, but Ant's been playing for Finch, freelance flow, fast break for a long time. It's going to be a real sign of how much his basketball IQ, I think, has grown now from where he came into the league, which was low,
Sure.
to where he is now as a fourth-year player. That's the thing to be tracking, is how this balance of structure and flow works to get Rudy to make sense within the group, but also how much that gets in the way or doesn't get in the way of Ant continuing to ascend in the way that he's going to. You don't want to slow down that shooting star.
There are some reasons to believe that even if he isn't as like tip top shape in the regular season with the actual structure, there are some guys that can really help with that though, like a Mike Conley, like a Karl-Anthony Towns, just running some pick and pops and things like that. Kyle Anderson's going to be great running some pick and rolls, a 6'9" guy. And then even Naz Reid, somebody you could dump the ball into, or hell, I saw the highlight of him reverse dunking after like catching the ball in the corner. Like that is disgusting. Yeah. That was insane. So there's a lot of reasons to believe that this team should have a higher record than what I'm about to predict for them. But I've got them at 46 wins and tied for 6th in the West, which
that's fair.
It doesn't seem like I think that this could be a top 4 seed in the West based off of talent alone. Now, some of the structure issues and some of the personnel issues I do think are fair, and it's easy to discuss those. But 46 wins in this group with the talent the West is, like, there's just a lot of reason to believe that would be a step in the right direction for Minnesota.
So can I ask you just how, and I think this is an important part of any of the like win total over under conversation, is like defining what we think the 1 seed and even like the 8, 9, 10 seed like looks like. I'm assuming you have Denver for the most wins in the West.
Actually, I've got Phoenix as the team with the most wins. I've got Phoenix at 53, Denver at 52, Memphis at 3 at 48. So if I have Minnesota at 46, they're in a group of 5 teams from 3 to 7 that are 46 to 48 wins. It is impossible to distinguish between which of those teams is going to break out. It could just as easily be Minnesota, and Minnesota could just as easily be 7.
Yeah. I just think it's going to be crunchy. Like, I don't know. I think I would take the under on 53 wins for the 1 seed this year. Like, I just, and I don't know. I mean, you've been doing these around the conference or around the league predictions, so you've dug into it more than I have. But it just strikes me in the West as a lot of parity, like good parity though, right? Not like a bunch of like mid teams, like a lot of good teams that become 44, 45, 46, 47 win teams because there's so many of them. And I think that's even true at the top. Like I'm up there with you on Phoenix. I'm a believer in that. Obviously I really respect Denver, but I think it's fair to, how much do they go into neutral, all that sort of thing. Sure. Like they're, I think with some reasonable questions about how and when Phoenix is going to hit their stride and Denver not being pedal to the metal, like maybe it is like 51 wins. That's the 1 seed.
I love
it. It really might be. I don't know. It wouldn't shock me at all. And then at the same time, having the Wolves be the 6 at 46, like it might be that small of a gap.
Well, you can absolutely make the argument that there are 3 all-stars on this team. Now, Rudy kind of fell off a little bit, and Karl he struggled in this last year. But when you have a team that has 3 potential all-stars on it, like in a Western Conference where it's just absolutely stacked for the most part, there is enough talent there to really carry the day in a lot of ways. So I would be shocked.
I for sure got 3 max contracts.
Hey, it might be 4 if we're counting Jaden here real soon. It might be 4. We're recording this on October 11th. Yeah, so we'll see whether he gets that. But no, I think that 46 seems like a fair number, just given where the rest of the West is, and they certainly have the potential to break out beyond that. But I'm going to go on record and say I believe that this team upsets somebody in the first round. If they are if they're in the lower half of the bracket, I think they'll upset a team above them.
See, I'm the opposite way with it. I think this could be a really good regular season team. Like maybe all of a sudden it's like they're the 3 seed. It's like they get 49 wins or whatever. Like that doesn't seem out of the realm of possibilities for me. I know they're going to be pushing for wins. They're not going to have any neutral to them, but I do doubt this team in a playoff series. In the specifics of picking at the same matchup for 7 straight games. There's a lot of talent on this team, but there's a lot of things that I would attack, right? If you're playing against basically any playoff opponent you're going to be playing, it's going to be 4, maybe 5 shooters on the floor at all times that you need to chase. It's going to be hard for the Wolves to chase with Cat at the 4, with Nas at the 4. Like, they're going to need to really be able to develop that over time. I mean, I'm not saying it's crazy that they could win a playoff series. I'm just more, again, on October 11th, in the belief that this could be a team that racks up regular season wins. And in a 7-game series, like, they're going to need to have answers for their obvious things that are holes that the opponent is going to be attacking.
And there's no doubt. And I think we saw in the last playoff series that they were a part of that there were holes, and Denver found a way to exploit them. But I do think that those are kind of covered up a little bit by the size and athleticism when you add guys like Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, Nickeil Alexander-Walker in a larger role kind of into that fold. And I've learned this about the Nuggets over the course of this last year. Size does matter, and having a big starting unit, having a big group that is very athletic and very versatile,
skilled bigs. That's what it is. It's like, it's making your like that Aaron Gordon can initiate the offense, right? And then that Aaron Gordon can kind of like simultaneously serve as like a straight dunker spot 5, like, what can that's the thing that the Wolves are peddling, right? Is, we got 2 bigs. We're going to have 2 bigs on the floor almost at all times, and Cat, Nas, and Rudy. 2 of those are going to be skilled bigs. Like, that's the thing I don't even think people understand about Nas yet. You see the highlights of him dunking and being a force in that sort of way, and you kind of like associate that almost like, I don't know, like Montrezl Harrell-y in a way. Like,
he's better than that.
He is, but I mean, Montrezl Harrell is 3 years removed from winning 6 man or whatever.
Fair.
Just like a interior offensive force. Like, Nas can be that, but Nas has handle. Nas can shoot it. Like, he is. If you are calling Karl a skilled big, which I think is pretty undeniable, Nas is from the same archetype tree of that. He does the same things Karl does at a lower production rate. So you have the 2 of the 3 bigs are, in my opinion, undeniably skilled bigs. And if we take Denver as an example of where the league is moving, they do kind of have some of that skilled big blueprint.
I believe in it, man. Like, I do. And I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is on this one. I am going to pick the Wolves to upset somebody in the first round. And that's a bet on Anthony Edwards just as much as it's a bet on their future. And I think that by the end of the season, maybe he's developed some of that structure while maintaining some of the freedom that you're talking about. So, and if you just trust the talent with those guys, like, I think that they can do it. I really do. And it's going to be a matter of staying healthy once again. But
sure,
I don't see any reason why this team couldn't upset a team like Golden State or the Clippers or I don't know, like pick a random Pacific team. Like,
but that's the thing, is those teams have reps in the playoffs.
Sure.
And there's something to that, of like the 7 games, knowing how to chess match it out. Like, if they catch like the Kings or something that has less experience, like, and maybe the Kings end up being the 3 and the Wolves are the 6. Like, I could see it in the right matchup. Yes, the Wolves went and lost to Memphis in the first round 2 years ago, and they went and lost to Denver in the first round last season. I don't feel like either of those series really felt like the chess match. And the experience of the chess match, I think, is really important. Maybe, like, I grow in that feeling over the course of the year. Like, different teams are throwing different looks at them, and the Wolves are finding success in multiple ways. But I don't know. I feel like, as the Wolves guy, I should be the one picking them to go further, but I guess that's not my brand.
All good. I mean, hey, we will see what actually happens with them, but I do have faith. I do have a belief in Tim Connolly and his vision. I believe in Anthony Edwards, and I don't see why this can't happen. So we will see what happens. But he is Dane Moore, covering the T-Wolves for the Dane Moore NBA podcast. Thank you so much, man. I'm really excited to talk to you later this year.
Yeah, man. Excited to get my, I don't know, what is it going to be, monthly little check-ins or whatever on what's going on around the league. And I'm sure I'll bug you to come on to talk some Nuggets too.
Fantastic. Good to see you.